There comes a point when you realize that the avoidant doesn't run from love, they run from intensity, from the feeling that love will consume them. They're not afraid of you, they're afraid of losing themselves. And yet, when the storm settles, when the noise fades, there's one energy they always come back to, the energy of peace. You see, the one who knows this trick understands something most people don't. You don't win an avoidance heart by pursuing them, by convincing them, or by proving your worth. You win it by embodying peace, by standing so deeply rooted in your own presence that their soul can feel it across silence, across distance, across time. That's the secret. They return to the one who doesn't try to control the outcome. Because the moment you stop trying to pull them closer and instead start living your truth, your purpose, your joy, you shift the dynamic. You go from chasing to attracting, from needing to becoming, and that's when they feel safe to come near again. You have to understand something. Deep avoidants crave freedom, but what they truly long for is to feel safe within that freedom. The one who knows this trick doesn't trap them, they give them space, but fill that space with energy so calm, so grounded that it whispers, you can come home without losing yourself. This is not manipulation, or all along a mirror of love that doesn't demand, only radiates. That's the trick. That's the transformation. You don't heal an avoidant by holding tighter. You heal yourself so completely that your peace heals them, even in your absence. And when that happens, they will always return. Avoidants don't return to the person who loved them the loudest. Return to the one who made them feel the safest. Emotional safety is the invisible magnet that draws them back every single time. It's not passion that sustains connection with an avoidant, it's peace. Because while they may crave intensity for a moment, their nervous system eventually rejects it. What they are truly drawn to is calm, a steady emotional rhythm that doesn't threaten their sense of control or identity. They've spent most of their lives associating closeness with danger, vulnerability with loss, and love with pain. So when someone shows up with grounded energy, without judgment or chaos, their entire system relaxes. It's the first time in a long time they can breathe around another person. That's why emotional safety is everything. The one who understands this trick knows that safety doesn't come from words, it comes from energy. It's in your tone, your consistency, your ability to stay calm when they pull away. It's when you don't make their distance mean rejection, but rather an expression of fear. You stop taking their avoidance personally. You stop reacting and start observing. And that emotional composure is magnetic. They may not say it, but deep inside they feel it. You become a safe harbor in a world that constantly overwhelms them. Every time you respond with understanding instead of accusation, their brain registers a new association. Love doesn't have to hurt. Every time you stay composed while they retreat, they start to believe closeness doesn't have to mean loss of freedom. That's the power of emotional safety. It rewires their relationship to love itself. Most people don't realize that avoidants aren't running from people. They're running from the emotional storms they expect to face. When you show them that connection can coexist with calm, they begin to lower their guard, not because you demanded it, but because their soul feels at rest near you. This is why avoidants often come back after time has passed. When they've experienced other connections that triggered their defenses, they remember the one who didn't, the one whose silence wasn't cold but peaceful, the one whose presence didn't suffocate but soothed. It's not about how much you love them, it's about how safe you make them feel in your love. Because love that feels like pressure pushes them away, but love that feels like permission draws them back. Emotional safety also means you have learned to regulate yourself. You don't let their withdrawal ignite your insecurities. You don't chase or beg for reassurance. Instead, you embody stability. And in that stability, they sense something divinia love that doesn't collapse when tested. You teach him, without words, that real love doesn't demand closeness, it invites it. And that invitation becomes irresistible to a heart that's been running from its own depth. The truth is, emotional safety is not about protecting the avoidant, it's about mastering yourself. Because only when you are safe within your own emotions can you create safety for another. When your energy radiates calm, when your love is not reactive but responsive, they feel it on a cellular level. They might not even understand why they think of you in quiet moments, why they feel peace imagining your presence, but that's the magnetic pull of emotional safety. It's what makes them return after the noise fades and the world feels heavy. It's the memory of your calm voice, your non-judgmental energy, your grounded presence that lingers long after you're gone. They don't come back because they miss the thrill, they come back because they miss the peace. Because emotional safety isn't just a feeling, it's a home. And every avoidant, no matter how far they run, is always searching for a place where their heart can finally rest without fear. Detachment is not indifference, it's power. It's the sacred space where love and self-respect meet. When you detach, you don't stop caring. You stop clinging. You stop trying to control the outcome. And instead, you begin to trust the flow of connection. For the avoidant, this shift is magnetic. Because the moment you stop chasing, you create space for them to feel their own desire again. They can't feel longing when someone is constantly trying to pull them closer. But the moment your energy shifts from pursuit to peace, something in them awakens. Your absence doesn't punish them. It restores the balance of energy. Avoidants often run from relationships that feel heavy or demanding. When you chase, plead, or overanalyze, your energy tells them you've made them your source of peace, and that triggers their fear of being consumed. They start to feel trapped, even if your intentions are pure. But when you detach, your energy communicates something very different. I want you, but I don't need you. I care, but I am whole on my own. That's when the dynamic changes. They begin to sense your confidence instead of your anxiety. They feel your calm instead of your pressure. You shift from being another emotional responsibility to being a source of emotional freedom. Detachment is not about playing games or pretending not to care. It's an energetic realignment with yourself. It's remembering that your worth doesn't depend on their validation. You stop trying to earn their love and start embodying it. You become what they are secretly craving, someone who stands strong in their own energy, someone who doesn't make love feel like a trap. And ironically, that's the very energy that pulls them back. Because for the avoidant, detachment feels like safety. They can breathe again around someone who doesn't need them to fill a void. They start missing your energy, not because you disappeared, but because we're calm became a rare sanctuary. When you detach, you send a signal consciously and unconsciously. You trust the process. You stop micromanaging love. You stop needing constant reassurance. You no longer chase connection through words or actions. You embody it through peace. And that peace radiates through your silence, through your confidence, through your ability to move forward without resentment. That's when they start to wonder where your attention went. Not because you're manipulating, but because you've stepped back into your natural power, the power of presence without pressure. This kind of detachment isn't cold, it's compassionate. It says, I see you, I understand your fears. I'm not here to fix them, but I won't abandon myself to soothe them either. That balance creates a gravitational pull. The avoidant begins to sense something they don't feel often: respect. They start respecting you because you respected yourself enough to stop chasing love and start standing in it. And that energy is unforgettable. Key-brook attachment also shifts your vibration. You stop radiating desperation and you start radiating self-trust. And energy doesn't leave people feel it. The avoidant feels it even more intensely because they're hyper-attuned to emotional pressure. The moment your energy relaxes, they feel safer approaching. The paradox is that the less you try to hold them, the closer they feel. The more you focus on your own growth, peace, and joy, the more their soul recognizes something familiar: freedom without fear. You begin to embody what they've been seeking but couldn't name. And it's not about what you do, it's about what you become. You become a reflection of their deepest desire to love without losing themselves. And once they've experienced your detached yet loving energy, they struggle to find it elsewhere. The world is full of people who chase, beg, or try to fix them, but you don't. You love them from a place of fullness. And that fullness calls to them long after you've gone quiet. So when you detach, you're not losing them, you're allowing them to find you again, from a place of choice instead of obligation. You're allowing love to flow naturally instead of forcing it to survive. And when they finally return, it's not because you made them, but because they felt drawn to the peace you created by letting go. Detachment, in its purest form, is the highest expression of love. It's saying, I trust the connection enough to set it free. And that trust becomes irresistible. Presence, without pressure, is the rarest kind of connection, and it's the one that reaches the avoidant heart like nothing else. Most people believe that love means constant communication, constant reassurance, constant doing. But the truth is, the most powerful love often lives in stillness. Presence, without pressure, is when your energy says, I see you, I feel you, I'm here. But your spirit doesn't demand, doesn't chase, doesn't pull. It's the energy of someone who has learned how to be deeply connected without being emotionally dependent. And that balance is what makes an avoidant feel safe enough to come close. Avoidants are hypersensitive to pressure. They've built their entire emotional defense system to protect themselves from being overwhelmed. The more someone tries to penetrate their walls, the more those walls rise. When they feel that someone needs constant affirmation, constant closeness, constant validation, their instinct is to retreat. It's not because they don't care, it's because closeness feels like a threat to their autonomy. But presence, without pressure, feels different. It tells them, you can be who you are, and it'll still be here, steady, grounded, peaceful. It doesn't suffocate, it soothes. It doesn't demand, it invites. The trick is in your energy. When your energy is needy, anxious, or expectant, it vibrates through every word, every silence, every gesture. Even if you say nothing, they can feel the weight of what you want from them. But when your energy is open, relaxed, and self-assured, you create space for them to breathe. They don't feel watched or analyzed. They don't feel they're failing you by not being more expressive. They simply feel accepted. And that acceptance is what makes them lower their guard. Presence, without pressure, also means you've mastered emotional independence. You've reached a place within yourself where your peace is not determined by their actions. You don't spiral when they pull away. You don't need to chase to feel secure. Instead, your energy remains calm and constant, like a soft light that keeps shining whether they're near or far. That light becomes their compass. Because even if they wander, even if they distance themselves, there's a quiet knowing inside them that your energy isn't reactive, it's safe, steady, and real. It's important to understand that being present doesn't mean overextending yourself. It's not about constantly showing up to prove your worth. It's about being fully authentic in the moments you do show up. It's about the quality of your energy, not the quantity of your presence. When you speak with heart, not fear. When you listen with openness, not with an agenda. And when you give space, you do it with love, not punishment. That combination is what creates emotional safety without tension. Avoidants often remember the people who gave them that kind of energy. They may not be able to articulate why, but something in their soul feels drawn back to the one who didn't pressure them to open up, who didn't demand words they weren't ready to say. They remember the person who made silence feel peaceful, not awkward, the one whose presence didn't feel like a performance, but like home. That's the kind of presence that lingers long after communication stops because it's not built on expectation, it's built on essence. When you master presence without pressure, you step into your true power. You're no longer controlled by your emotions, you guide them. You allow connection to flow naturally instead of forcing it, to match your pace. And paradoxically, that's what draws people, especially avoidants, closer. Because they sense they can be fully themselves with masks, no fear of being judged, no fear of being consumed. They begin to associate your energy with relief. Presence without pressure is like oxygen for the avoidant heart. It doesn't try to change them, it simply makes it safe for them to breathe. And once someone has breathed deeply in your presence, without the fear of losing their autonomy, they'll never forget that feeling. It becomes a spiritual imprint, a quiet memory of what love could feel like when it's free, steady, and unconditional. That's the invisible pull that keeps drawing them back to you, one who mastered the art of being there without needing to be everything. Emotional regulation is one of the most powerful forces in any connection, especially when dealing with an avoidant partner. The one who can remain centered during emotional chaos becomes the anchor in the storm, the calm their heart never knew it needed. Avoidants are not drawn to intensity, they are drawn to stability. They live in a world where emotions feel unpredictable and overwhelming. So when they meet someone who can stay grounded no matter what happens, it awakens something deep inside them. They start to trust not because of words, but because your emotional state communicates safety. When you can regulate your emotions, you show them that love doesn't have to feel like drowning. You become a living example of balance, someone who can feel deeply without losing control. The avoidant, on the other hand, has spent most of their life trying to manage other people's emotional storms. They grew up believing that love meant walking on eggshells or having to shut down to survive. So when you don't react explosively to their distance, when you don't crumble under silence or rejection, it challenges everything they've known about connection. You show them that love can coexist with peace. Emotional regulation doesn't mean suppressing your feelings. It means feeling everything fully, but responding instead of reacting. It means being aware of your triggers, your expectations, and your emotional patterns and choosing to act from wisdom rather than impulse. When they withdraw, you don't panic. When they become distant, you don't beg for closeness. You breathe. You let them have their space, not from fear but from faith. That steadiness creates a new emotional blueprint in their mind. They begin to associate you with safety, not chaos. They begin to feel that being close to you won't lead to emotional explosion, but emotional balance. Avoidants test people unconsciously. When they pull back, it's not always about losing interest, it's often about testing whether the other person will chase, blame, or explode. They're watching your reactions to decide whether closeness equals danger. If you meet that test with emotional regulation with patience, calm, and groundedness, you bypass their defenses. You show them that they can be flawed, fearful, inconsistent, and still not be punished. You become the exception, and that exception stays in their memory long after they've walked away. When you are emotionally regulated, you're also teaching them a silent lesson. You're showing them how to feel safely. Most avoidants never learned how to handle emotional intensity, they learned to shut down instead. But your example shows them a different model where emotions don't need to be suppressed, only managed. Your calm energy becomes a mirror that reflects possibility. Maybe love doesn't have to be terrifying. Maybe closeness doesn't have to mean chaos. That's how healing begins, not through lectures, but through emotional demonstration. There's incredible power in not matching their emotional withdrawal with emotional panic. The more you stay centered, the more they start to regulate through your energy. You become what psychologists call a co-regulator, someone whose calmness helps stabilize another's nervous system. That's why they often return to the person who handled them with grace. Their subconscious remembers how your presence felt safe, grounding, peaceful. Even when they were distant, your steadiness spoke louder than any words. Emotional regulation also means holding compassion without losing boundaries. You can empathize with their fear of intimacy while still honoring your own emotional needs. You don't suppress your truth, you express it calmly. You don't use silence as punishment, you use it for reflection, and in doing so, you maintain both strength and softness. That combination is magnetic. The avoidant sees in you what they wish they could become, someone who feels deeply but stays free. When you can stay emotionally centered while others lose control, you become unforgettable. You embody the rare energy of someone who isn't controlled by fear or reaction. That's the kind of presence that heals without words. It invites trust, respect, and admiration. The avoidant may not consciously know why they feel drawn back, but on a deeper level, their body remembers what it felt like to be near someone emotionally stable. And that memory, feeling of peace in your energy, becomes impossible to replace. Unconditional acceptance without compromise is one of the most powerful dynamics in love, and it's the very energy that makes avoidance return. It means you see them fully, their fears, their walls, their hesitations, and you don't try to force them to change. You accept who they are, not because you're blind to their flaws, but because you understand that pressure never heals a wounded heart. Acceptance is not weakness, it's strength in its highest form. It's a declaration that says, I can love you without needing to fix you. And for someone whose entire identity has been built around self-protection, that kind of love is both disarming and unforgettable. Avoidants have spent much of their lives feeling unseen or misunderstood. They learned early that love often comes with conditions, approval, control, expectations, or performance. When they sense that someone only loves them when they are emotionally available or expressive, they instinctively pull away. But the one who truly understands the trick doesn't try to break their walls, they simply choose to see beyond them. You don't fight their distance, you hold space for it. You allow them to be imperfect without withdrawing your warmth. That doesn't mean tolerating disrespect or neglect, it means you stop taking their fear personally. Unconditional acceptance doesn't mean allowing everything. It means knowing your boundaries while still keeping your heart open. You don't chase them when they retreat, but you also don't punish them with coldness. You remain consistent in your energy, steady, kind, and self-assured. That consistency is what teaches them that love doesn't have to come with emotional turbulence. It's not about proving your worth, it's about embodying peace. The avoidant begins to sense that they don't have to perform to earn your presence. And that experience is rare for them, so rare that they remember it long after they've walked away. When you accept them unconditionally, you are speaking to the part of them that's never felt safe being themselves. Every avoidant carries a hidden longing to be loved without having to pretend, to be met where they are without someone constantly asking for more. You give them the gift of emotional freedom, the right to move at their own pace, the right to feel scared without being judged. And the irony is, the moment they feel that freedom, they begin to open naturally. Because when love feels safe, the heart doesn't need walls. There's something profoundly healing about being accepted, not for what you give, but for who you are. When you show them that love doesn't mean control or criticism, they begin to associate connection with peace instead of danger. They start to trust again. It doesn't happen overnight, but your steady energy begins to melt their resistance. The trick isn't in doing more, it's in being more. Being more grounded, more compassionate, more centered. Your calm becomes their invitation to soften. Hebrew, but unconditional acceptance must always walk hand in hand with self-respect, because love without boundaries becomes self-abandonment. The magic lies in holding both. You love them deeply, but you also love yourself enough not to lose your center. You don't compromise your values or your emotional safety just to keep the connection alive. Instead, you stand in your truth, radiating an energy that says, you are free to be who you are, and I am free to stay true to myself. That balance creates a sacred polarity, freedom and love coexisting in harmony. When the avoidant experiences that kind of love, it leaves a lasting imprint. They might not express it, but they feel it deeply. They realize that the one who accepted them without trying to control them gave them something they couldn't find anywhere else: peace. Most people loved them for who they want. Add them to be you, loved them for who they were. And that love, wrapped in acceptance yet strengthened by boundaries, becomes unforgettable. It's the one energy they can't replace, the one they always circle back to when the noise of the world fades. Because unconditional acceptance without compromise doesn't just touch the heart, it transforms it. Energy speaks louder than words, it's the silent language of connection that bypasses logic and speaks directly to the nervous system. You can tell someone you're calm, loving, and at peace. But if your energy carries anxiety, need, or resentment, they'll feel that instead, especially avoidants, who are highly attuned to emotional energy. They may not always understand feelings intellectually, but they sense them instantly. When your energy vibrates with peace, confidence, and grounded love, it communicates something words never could: safety. And safety is the one thing their heart cannot resist. Avoidants don't trust easily, not because they don't want to, but because their system is wired for survival, not connection. They're always scanning for danger, emotional pressure, hidden expectations, or the possibility of losing freedom. That's why they respond more to energy than to what's said. When your presence radiates acceptance and calm, their body begins to relax. It's not the content of your message, it's the frequency behind it. They can sense when love comes with conditions, and they can feel when it comes from truth. You can't fake energetic peace, it has to be cultivated from within. The one who knows this trick understands that attraction and communication happen on multiple levels: verbal, emotional, and energetic. They stop trying to convince or explain and instead focus on aligning their own vibration. When you are emotionally regulated, when your energy is grounded and open, it naturally shifts the dynamic. You don't chase, you don't demand, you simply exist in a state of presence. And that energy calls to the avoidant in a way that no words ever could. They may not consciously understand why they start thinking about you again, why your absence feels different, why your silence feels peaceful instead of cold. It's because your energy imprinted safety into their nervous system. People often underestimate the power of their energetic state. When your mind is restless, your voice carries tension, your texts carry need, and your silence carries anger. But when you've done the inner work, when your energy is grounded in self-trust and emotional maturity, it carries peace, clarity, and strength. That's the language an avoidant understands. Their body feels drawn to your calm because it represents something they don't have within themselves. It feels like home, even if they've never had one before. Energy doesn't lie. You can say you're fine, but if your energy says you're waiting, hoping, or aching, they'll feel it. The trick isn't in pretending to move on, it's in truly shifting your vibration. You stop needing them to validate your worth. And you begin to radiate from a place of wholeness. That's when they start feeling your absence differently. It's not avoid, it's peace. And peace is powerful because it creates curiosity. They start to wonder how you've managed to find balance without them. That quiet strength becomes magnetic. The more you embody calm, self-respect, and emotional freedom, the more your energy speaks of something they crave but can't easily find elsewhere. The avoidance world is often filled with tension, unspoken expectations, emotional noise, internal conflict. Your energy becomes a refuge from all that. When they remember you, they don't remember the conversations as much as they remember the feeling of being around you, how it felt safe to breathe, how it felt simple, even if just for a moment. This is why the person who masters their energy never has to chase love. You don't beg for attention. You don't try to prove your worth. You let your vibration do the talking. The avoidant feels your balance, your emotional independence, and your quiet power. They come back not because of words you've said, but because their soul remembers the peace you carried. Energy becomes the invisible bridge between your absence and their longing. And in the end, that's what makes you unforgettable. Your energy becomes their contrast, the difference between peace and chaos, between control and surrender. They might run from words, but they'll always return to the energy that made them feel safe, seen, and free all at once. Because in a world full of noise, the calmest frequency always stands out and it always calls them home. In the end, love isn't about chasing, fixing, or convincing. It's about becoming. It's about stepping into the highest version of yourself, the version that radiates calm, strength, and truth. The avoidant doesn't return because you begged them to. They return because your energy evolved. You stopped needing them to complete you and started embodying peace, confidence, and inner safety. That's what draws them back, not your words, not your silence, but your transformation. You became the home they didn't know they were searching for. Remember, real love doesn't demand, it inspires. It doesn't suffocate, it frees. And the moment you start loving from that place of power, everything changes. You stop trying to pull people into your life and instead become a magnet for connection that's aligned, deep, and real. Because the truth is, love flows toward peace. And when you've mastered your own, the right people will always find their way back, not through pressure, but through resonance. So hold your heart high. Keep growing. Keep healing. Keep becoming the calm in a world full of chaos. Because one day, someone who once ran from your love will finally recognize what they were running toward all along you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for choosing growth over fear, presence over pressure, and peace over pursuit. May you walk with power, speak with purpose, and love with a heart so grounded that even distance can't shake its light. Until next time, stay strong, stay centered, and never forget the energy you carry is the message you send to the world. And when it's love, the universe always listens.